Good morning, everyone, and happy Thursday. The market was looking great yesterday, good heading into today, and then it just fell off of a cliff this morning once the CPI report was released. Inflation came in a lot higher than everyone was expecting, and it's not looking good. So, yeah, it's looking pretty rough so far. We can see Tom has the article pulled up. We can see inflation rises 7.5% over the past year, even more than expected, and the highest since 1982. And it's just, Tom, it's looking rough.
Yeah, I can't believe this was the highest number since 1982. It's just insane to see that these numbers are continuing to just rise at such a rapid rate. And looking at the CPI data on the chart down here, Mike, we can start to see it's getting pretty overextended. Like they said, the highest since 92. And we can see that, obviously the Fed tries to keep it somewhere around 2%. And, we can see it's mainly stayed around there. But I don't know what's been going on the past year. Obviously, COVID and stuff like that had such a big effect. And it looks like that these numbers are just continuing to spiral out of control. And same thing with the market. The SPY gave up all of those gains of yesterday. It's really sad to see that the SPY fell down this drastically. I was hoping that for maybe just a couple of points, like a couple point drop or something, but man, we ended up tanking down pretty hard.
Yeah, so in the same way that when, rates were like I guess you could say cut initially during COVID and everything just continued to blast to the upside for months, rates falling are good for stocks. It really helps the valuations of just stocks in general. And when rates rise, it really hurts valuations. Basically, there's like a simple answer and a more complex answer, but the simple answer is basically the higher rates are, the higher the discount rate is for valuations, and the higher the discount rate is, the lower the valuation gets. So it's not looking good today, Tom. Lots of selling pressure. So many stocks were looking great yesterday. So I'm curious if we can maybe see a bounce out of the SPY. Part of me is with the SPY, we're already down 1.3%. So it's maybe we base off right around 451, maybe 450.
That would be a very nice scenario if that does happen. And there is a bit of support right at both of those levels. So hopefully we do see the bounce. I know that it looks like on the 1 minute is so far, at least at market open, we are getting a little bit of a bounce back up. So hopefully we come back up above 453 and maybe at least retest 454. I think that would be at least a pretty good intraday move. But yeah, we went down so hard last night with the SPY, even the QQQ. It's so sad to see it open up so low. And a lot of stocks on my watch list are just pretty deep in the red. I know that Peloton was a pretty hot stock this week. They're down another, 4.4%. We have AMC coming right back down. I know they were kind of flying up yesterday as well. And, a lot of these growth stocks are just back in the red.
True that. True. I'm just looking at the market and it's damn, it was looking so good yesterday, but clearly it's not the best today. This CPI report is kind of raining on Disney's parade, Tom. Disney was looking awesome in after hours yesterday, hitting highs of around 162. Now it's back to 156, which, it's still up 6%, which is great, but it's clearly not up like it was yesterday. And a lot of the Disney options are definitely struggling. I'm looking at, this is actually pretty unfortunate. So a lot of even Disney calls that expire tomorrow are in the red by quite a bit, and especially the calls for even next week. They're all, for the most part, they're red.
Yeah, that sucks to see. And I know that a couple of stocks have really exploded lately with earnings like Enphase. And then we can see that the very next day, like yesterday, for example, Enphase just ended up selling off I should say at the beginning of the day because of, I guess, they just rose so much in pre-market and after hours that they just had to take a little bit of a move back to the downside. And it looks like Disney might be doing that same thing. It looks like they are starting to come down here early in the morning. But I will be watching Disney, Mike, because whenever Disney's falling, I feel like if they start touching off of a very good support, they might end up bouncing maybe around lunchtime or something, and we might be able to kind of catch it, kind of like we did with Enphase yesterday.
True that. Tom, we have Mike saying, good morning, everyone. Oh boy, this is going to hurt. I nominate Mike and Tom to replace Powell. Bill
Oh
said he
no.
agreed. Oh gosh. Tom, I would not want to be chair of the Fed in today's environment. I feel like the next chair is just going to be left with like a mess, because inflation is just it's pretty rough, and there's a lot of problems going on right now. And to be fair, Powell, I do have a lot of respect for him. He does not have an easy job, but oh gosh, I don't know if I'd take that position.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I probably would just because it's such a cool position to have. But I mean, honestly, like, look, we've even seen Powell like trading stocks and stuff while he's there. So I guess you can do a lot of stuff while you're in that office. But yeah, I mean, it's just such an interesting scenario. With the Fed chair, Mike, what are they? It's a 4-year term, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
4-year term. I mean, that's quite long. I was almost expecting you to say 2 years, but I did remember hearing 4 a while ago whenever they were talking about all of that. But yeah, I mean, it's insane. I don't know. That job is a hard job. Obviously, Powell is he's done good and he's done bad. Obviously, people were upset with his transitory comments. I'm sure people haven't forgotten those yet. But in the end, though, the market's done pretty good with him in office, which is, it's okay to see at least. But yeah, it looks like today the SPY is just really tanking down with that CPI data. And honestly, I wonder how this is going to affect Powell's decisions at the next Fed meeting because, they've been saying that they're watching the CPI data so closely. And with it coming in so high, I mean, I feel like they might start talking about cutting those rates pretty soon. I should say raising the rates is what I meant.
Yeah, Sean goes, Tom would take it just to be called Big Daddy Moore.
I probably would.
Oh my God. Could you imagine that? Like instead of saying Big Daddy Powell, Big Daddy Moore?
Or Big Daddy D'Antonio.
That doesn't sound the same. It sounds bad.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. That's funny. So let's see. Let's see what we have moving. So we have George saying KO now tanking in pre-market. Yeah, I mean, it's all over the place. I mean, technically it's slightly in the green, but then again, it just came back up, so it's kind of flat. What else do we have moving? Let's see. We have Keisha saying SPY had a gap to fill, but did it sooner than I expected. Yeah, Tom, what levels do you have for the SPY?
Yeah, let's see the gap that they're talking about. As I'm looking at it on the daily chart here, I don't see too big of a gap that they filled to the downside, but I will say though, looking at the 180-day 1-hour chart, they have been bouncing off of a lot of key levels lately. Honestly, we could have almost forecasted this move to the downside, Mike. We were bouncing off of a pretty key resistance right around 458 at the end of the day yesterday. Actually, we came within just a couple cents of that, so that could have been a pretty good opportunity if we would have noticed that key resistance right there. But looking at the SPY, if we pass above 458, I think it could have a great move to the upside. But as we're falling down today, we're going to be falling down into some pretty big supports, right around 450 to 451, right where we've been hovering around today. So there's some pretty big supports and resistances that we've been moving at over the past couple days.
True that. All right, we shall see. We have Vicky asking about Roku, Tom. What do you think of that one, and what levels do you have for us?
Roku's actually not doing bad. They popped up quite well in after hours yesterday. I don't know if they went up with Disney or what it was, but I know that some of the streaming stocks did recover up when Disney reported great numbers, so that's good to see. But Roku is having a decent morning. They fell off in pre-market. They're coming right back up. Looks like they're going to be hovering right around 2% today, but mostly just flat movement. It hasn't done great. I will say though, since market open, it's been pretty good, but that pre-market movement kind of makes it not as enticing.
What do you think for levels on it?
Levels, I mean, as far as intraday levels, it looks like there's a bit of support, right around 163.30. There's definitely been a few bounces, right around that. I guess you could just say 163. And then as far as upper resistance, obviously we bounced at 173 in after hours yesterday, so I feel like 170 to 173 is going to be a pretty good resistance. But let me look on the 1 hour just to kind of see some better levels. And yeah, I would say 173. And if we break that, the next major one's going to be around 180.
Good stuff. All right, we have Joe mentioning DWAC, Tom. This one's been all over the place, but I will say it is holding up pretty well compared to the overall market. For those of you who don't know, this is Trump's SPAC with Truth Social. So I know it has been running up pretty good, like over like the past couple weeks, but it's not looking too bad.
Yeah, Truth Social is set to come out on February 21st. We're sitting at February 10th, so we have about 11 days, and it's going to be crazy. You know, as we approach that launch of their platform, it's probably going to go pretty insane. You know, like you said, it was having a pretty good week last week. This week it did tank down a little bit, but it is good to see it holding its ground, like you said, especially with the overall market down so much. As this one starts to rise, I mean, there's going to be some pretty big resistances, like right around $85 and then 87.50. But if we can start to break those, I think this stock could start to have a pretty nice run, especially with all the hype coming up with its launch. But keep in mind, though, that this stock is going to be really, really volatile and hard to play, especially with call options. I would almost recommend just playing shares with this one. And the good news is we see this stock pop like 10% all the time. So you can usually get some pretty good gains with shares alone.
Just one thing to keep in mind is, like, I know that there were some, I guess you could say, things related to a delayed release. The CEO of Truth Social announced on Thursday, which was last week, that it's still undergoing beta testing and that it would release by the end of March. So it looks like the launch might be a little bit delayed, but we shall see.
That's right. I do remember hearing that. Now that you said that, it was a little covered up by all those earnings that were coming out. But yeah, I definitely remember seeing that article a little bit. So yeah, keep that in mind. Sometime around the end of March, not in 11 days. So
yeah,
but,
not in
either
11
way,
days.
though, one good piece of news is that you can go to truthsocial.com and actually like sign up on there for their newsletter or whatever. So maybe you can keep updated with that. But other than that, that's the only thing they have going right now.
There we go. Alrighty, let's see. All right, cool. So I'm just looking through a couple different stocks today, Tom. One that you read my mind. I was just gonna say MU, and it's already on the chart. MU,
man, this
up
thing is
5%.
insane.
5%, Tom. That's crazy. So it's booming. Do you see any news on this one? Let's see. I'm not seeing any crazy news, at least on Thinkorswim.
Yeah, I'm not either, but I will say MU was bouncing off some pretty good supports before it started rising back to the upside. Like we can see on the max daily chart with MU, it's been all over the place the past couple of months, Mike. Like we were, we recovered up from $66 all the way up to 98, got rejected right around $100, hit 75. Now we're all the way back up to 92 just a few days later. So this stock has been very, very volatile. I'm happy to see this one running on a day where the market's doing terrible. I think that's great news for their stock. And, I know that I believe Pelosi has a position in MU, doesn't she?
Yeah, her and her husband do have a position on it. I forgot what the exact strike and expiration are, so I don't know. But I know it's definitely a bullish play.
Yeah, and I know that while the stock was falling down, people were like, oh, man, Pelosi's getting clapped. But, I mean, man, maybe she knew something. Look at this. Yeah. It's coming right back up. This stock's pretty explosive. And, we've been seeing these chip stocks exploding quite a bit over the past couple of years. I wonder how Qualcomm's been doing the past few days. And, they've actually been holding up pretty well. They're not running up like MU is today, but for the past couple days, they were having pretty good green days. And it looks like stocks like AMD have been kind of recovering up as well. So I guess MU's movement isn't too surprising, but man, it's up quite a bit, up 4 or 5%. Like this is getting pretty volatile here.
True. Alrighty. So MU's looking good. Of course, Disney's still in the green. I know George mentioned Enphase, Tom, which obviously had a great day yesterday, which is actually holding its ground pretty well. I know a lot of stocks are at least holding their ground this morning so far, so that is good to see. Enphase is like one of those longer term plays for me, but of course it's always good to see short term movement in the green.
Yeah, it definitely is, and this one's going to be hard to play today, I feel like, Mike. If the way it fell down yesterday was pretty insane, and I would say as long as it ends up holding its ground, it'll be a pretty good intraday play, but overall, like you said, I definitely prefer it for the longer term, and they're in that solar sector and industry, which is definitely set to do good in the future. So hopefully they do better. And one good piece of news, Mike, is that as this stock rose over the past couple days, or as the earnings came out, that IV dropped down quite a bit. So we'll have to kind of like eye up these options pricing or the options pricing down here and see if it got any better.
Yeah. All right. Keisha mentioned Boeing too. So how's that one?
It's actually doing very well, exploding up, breaking the high of yesterday. And the airlines and Boeing have been doing very, very well ever since the end of last week. I know that, stocks were tanking down then. And then Monday, we got that amazing recovery back to the upside. It was so nice to see Boeing and the rest just continue to go. And, look at this. We're almost back up above $220 now. It's getting pretty explosive on the chart.
Awesome. Yeah, Boeing has been doing very, very well over the past couple weeks. Like, it's been like nonstop green ever since like that 185 level, you can say, maybe 183. But yeah, that's awesome. So I guess you could say it's about time because Boeing has just done nothing for like over a year.
Yeah, it really is about time. I mean, this one's just like you said, it's been consolidating forever. Like, we can look at the 1 year daily chart and we're almost to the point, Mike, where we're in the negative range over the past 12 months, but not quite there yet with the stock popping up today, which is good. So hopefully it keeps going. Honestly, I really like this 210 support. I think that's going to end up holding up. And as long as it does, I think that Boeing can start to go on a pretty good uptrend. And I do also like how it's starting to break some of these key trend lines. Like, we can see it was bouncing off of this trend line quite a bit before finally staying above it.
True that. Alrighty, so looking at some other plays, I think Tesla's actually tanking down a little bit. Yeah, Tesla, well, it's actually not too bad. I don't know. What do you think about Tesla? I just saw it pop up on my radar. It's kind of all over the place.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it was definitely tanking down in pre-market. That was looking terrible. It looks like it is kind of recovering back up, though. Yeah, I mean, it's not looking the best to me. I don't see this one like rising up too much today. Especially with that movement in pre-market. I will say though, if a lot of other like key growth stocks start recovering back, I think Tesla can come up, but I just feel like that there's too much overhead resistance right here. And obviously the market is just not as explosive today. So I don't know. I don't like the movement too much, Mike. And honestly, this one would just be like a no play for me today. It's so flat compared to that closing price. It's just almost not even worth a move.
Yeah, like it just doesn't have any momentum. I feel like it could go either way.
Yeah, like it might hit this 925 resistance and come right back down. Kind of like, we are seeing some consolidation there, but, maybe you could play a play like that to the downside. But like we always say, is it worth the risk? And on such a risky stock like Tesla, probably not.
Yeah. Alrighty. Let's see. I'm just looking through some of these other comments really quickly. George also mentioned Datadog, DDOG. Let's take a look. That one's doing very well. It's up over 12%.
Yeah, it is. Look at this. I cannot believe that they're doing this well. I didn't even see these guys on any articles this morning or see anything about their earnings, so I don't know too much about what's going on with them, but looks like they're doing very well. It kind of reminds me of a setup like Enphase or something like that with their earnings. They're definitely getting a nice pop up, and I know that Datadog has been another one of those stocks that was beaten down, and look at the way this thing recovered. It actually gapped up quite well.
Yeah, so I'm going to look into their earnings a little bit more later, but that's always good to see. I saw you were eyeing up ExxonMobil, which has been doing very, very well over the past couple months, but we're definitely in the middle of at least a short-term pullback.
Yeah, we are. It looks like they had two pretty big pullbacks over the past couple of days, and I will say, like, the SPY was doing pretty well while Exxon was pulling back. So it was interesting to see that. But today they are coming back to the upside. We're up 0.6%. Looks like it does have some momentum from market open, and it's kind of holding this $79 support. We are approaching a key resistance around 80. But yeah, I mean, I don't know about these oil plays anymore, Mike. Like, they were so explosive. Like, we have to expect a pullback in the short term. This almost reminds me of a play almost like with Ford, Mike. Ford just continued to go up. They continued to break out, and you just have to expect those pullbacks eventually. And I feel like that we're in that same scenario with Exxon and Mobil, Chevron, even stocks like Oxy. They can keep going up in the short term, but at some point we're going to see a pretty big pullback.
Yeah, we shall see. We have Mike saying, I missed my opportunity to pick up Facebook. I needed to go back down to the low 220s. Yeah, Facebook had a pretty nice pop yesterday. I hope it does fall for you to have that entry. But even if it doesn't, it's like if it's a longer term play, I feel like even if you have to buy in at like 232 rather than like 222 or even 220, I feel like it's worth paying the extra couple dollars per share. And like you could always just do like a small position at like 230 or 232 or whatever. Like I feel like the opportunity cost, like if you don't get in it, will probably be greater than even if you have to pay 232 rather than 220. So I think like if it's a longer term play that you plan on holding for years, I think it doesn't really matter too much. But then again, you could always just slowly scale in. You know, you could buy like, you know, maybe 10% of your total intended position maybe every couple weeks.
Yeah, I don't think it matters too much either. Like, I think personally, if you're getting Facebook under like $240 a share, I think you're getting it at a great price, whether you get it at 220, 230, or even like at 238. So I feel like it's just a really good pickup down here. Like Mike said, just average in, and I think you'll end up with a pretty good price. Even if the stock starts going up, at least you, at least like Mike said, that opportunity cost is going to be pretty good. You know what I mean? Like if you end up missing this move back to the upside, you will be pretty upset. So I think getting some shares, at least a little bit, and starting a nice position will be good for Facebook, especially like when we look at that max daily chart. Like, man, like we're getting such a big discount on this one right now. Like it's almost mind blowing to say how much they fell down. And, you know, I know they had those issues obviously in the shorter term and they missed out on like monthly active users and stuff. But honestly, like we all know that, you know, Facebook is a pretty big entity and they're not going to go anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, and they're still growing. So it's like, you know, if you have cash that you're looking to invest, you know, like let's say in one scenario, you just like buy the dip at 232 and then let's say in, I don't know, let's say over like the next 5 years, you can average a 15% return by holding Facebook. Like that's a random number, but whether you choose 15% or 20% or 7%, the main point is that you are getting a return on your money. But on the other hand, if you were to, instead of invest that money that you're looking to invest, if you just like hold it like on the sidelines, not only will you miss the opportunity to one, invest your money, but then also you will lose to inflation, which is like 7% now. So it's like there's a pretty big discrepancy, especially when inflation's high. Like when you have opportunities, you kind of have to strike on them. And that does not mean you have to invest in Facebook. It could just be like, it could be any investment. It could be an investment in the S&P 500. It could be an investment in precious metals. It can be anything. It just goes to show you, like, you know, you kind of got to strike when the iron's hot, especially when inflation is the way it is.
Yeah, definitely. You can't be missing out on those opportunities. And before you know it, you know, they'll be gone. You know, we've seen it in the past happen plenty of times, and it'll definitely happen again. And Facebook, in my opinion, is just one of those companies that I feel like can be pretty good. Now, at the same time, you know, there's always discrepancies. You know, of course, Truth Social's coming out, and who knows, maybe the market was pricing in Truth Social. You know, I mean, Facebook took a pretty big tumble. I would say it's already priced in at this point with the way it fell down. So honestly, I think it's pretty good down here. And just overall, you know, just like Mike said, strike while the iron's hot. It's not just Facebook. There's so many other great investments down here at these lower levels as well. Blink is just one example. You know, they're doing pretty well today, but they're a pretty good stock at a pretty great level. Same thing with Corsair. Well, Disney was before they started popping, but hopefully Disney is a good example to strike while the iron's hot, because, you know, you can miss those boats pretty quickly.
Yeah. I'm not like a huge fan of Blink, Tom. Like I definitely believe in the EV charging industry, and like Blink's good. I'm just I don't know. Like I'm not like the biggest fan of them. Like even at this level, at $23.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of reminds me of like a Palantir, to be honest. You know, that it has very similar movement. I know they don't have government contracts, but then again, like when you read Palantir's contracts, they're not guaranteed all of the money. So I don't know, but either way, though, I feel like that, you know, like that whole sector in general, I think will do pretty good. whether it's Blink or ChargePoint or anything like that. I feel like that over the next like 3 to 5 years, they'll end up going up. But chart movement, I mean, it's exactly the same as like Palantir and like all these other growth stocks.
Yes, that's true. The charts are extremely similar. For me, like I'm looking at Blink's fundamentals, it's like, all right, they're worth around $1 billion. In 2020, their revenue was only 6 million. Now, to be fair, to be completely fair, their quarterly revenue in like the third quarter of 2021 alone was 6 million. So they're clearly growing. They're growing a ton. It looks like they're what is this? It looks like their total yearly revenue should be around maybe like 17 to 18 million this year, maybe. They didn't report earnings yet, but we'll know obviously in a couple weeks. But still, the price to sales ratio is 63, which is quite a bit. And then they also have competition with ChargePoint, Tesla, and a bunch of other people.
Yeah, and they actually already have some deals going on. Like their Blink is going to be supplying EV charging stations to GM dealerships in North America. I think that's pretty good news, especially for a company just starting out. Like honestly, what do you say their revenue was? 6 million? Like this deal alone should boost their revenue way higher than that. So looking at it, I mean, I feel like they'll be pretty good. They already have some deals going on, which is good. And I just like when I see some other companies that are starting out, it's always good to see that they at least have the numbers going for them, at least as far as talks with bigger companies like General Motors. That's a pretty big deal, I think, to be supplying GM dealerships across America with chargers. Like I know GM is a pretty big, obviously pretty big company, and tons of people have like Chevy dealerships and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's true. I'm not going to be one to short Blink, especially at this level, mainly due to the industry that they're in, because I also believe that it's going to grow a lot, but we will see. I mean, I'm just more into, like, of course, Tom, DraftKings, Disney, Square, companies like that, but Blink definitely has potential. They just need to keep growing the way they are.
Yeah, and honestly, like hopefully they all just start going up. Like we said, they're kind of the charts are very similar. Like on DraftKings, Blink, ChargePoint, Lucid. I mean, lots of these companies have very similar charts, and Palantir even, and plenty more. But like honestly, like if DraftKings, Corsair, Palantir, if they all start rising, the chances of Blink going up is probably also pretty high. So hopefully we just see the growth sector overall rising. And man, Mike, we have earnings coming up with DraftKings actually pretty soon now that I'm looking at it. Looks like they're coming out on February 18th. And I'm really awaiting this. Hopefully they have some good numbers. And, we've been seeing probably a bit of increased betting with the NFL playoffs and everything. I know the Super Bowl's coming up this weekend. So we'll have to see. Hopefully they have some good numbers for us.
It's going to be a wild and exciting day. Like, if everything goes great, we might see a giant pop. And if it doesn't, it's not going to be good. But, either way, it's a longer-term play. Short-term movement, you got to, like, love it and hate it. Because, like, you don't want to, like, I guess you could say paper hand off of bad short-term movement. But at the same time, it's always good to see your stocks popping up. And speaking of stocks popping up, Tom, what is going on with this market? It's like, right back up.
Wow, it did. The SPY recovered all the way back. Look at this 5-minute candle. I mean, what is this? This had a humongous wick to the upside. Let's check out the 1-minute movement. Look at this 1-minute print on the SPY. Like, I don't know if this was a glitch or what happened. I know we saw a glitch happen with this the other day, but man, I mean, look at that. We popped all the way up to 457.50, and then we came right back down within 1 minute. I mean, man, Mike, like, do you think that's a glitch? I mean, honestly, I think it was, because there would have been more volume, I think, come in that 1 minute if it wasn't.
Yeah, I think it is a glitch, but, like, not even just the SPY's moving like this. Like, of course, DraftKings totally reversed. What else do we have? Like, Square is booming. What else do we have? Like, Enphase doing very well.
Tesla's coming back quite well.
Tesla's coming back, like you said. George said that he didn't see that glitch on TradingView, so it probably is a glitch then for sure. But either way, like, stocks are coming back.
Yeah, they are. And honestly, even though that was a glitch there, the SPY is almost back up to the top of it. So
Yeah.
hopefully it keeps going, Mike. I mean, this is a great recovery. I'm really happy to see this. My watch list has turned, it's more green now than it is red, and it started the day out with only like 5 stocks in the green. So I'm really glad to see the recovery, especially out of the tech sector. We can see the QQQ is coming back quite well also. It is bouncing off this 364 resistance here, but hopefully we continue up today. Like we said earlier in the morning, we had some pretty good stocks like Boeing really breaking out, Mike. Like they almost ran up to $220. We're just getting such good moves out of some great stocks. And, I know we were talking about Square earlier as well, and look at them continuing to go. They're about to break out again.
True that. All right, so we have Jay Deep saying, will this news affect the market further? So I'm not sure which news you're referring to, but I think it's the CPI report. And yes, inflation has a giant role in the economy and the stock market. Basically, when we have inflation high, it kind of urges the Fed to raise rates. And when they raise rates, it affects so many things from, I guess you can say, the affordability of houses, because the higher mortgage rates go, generally the lower housing prices go, because it just makes it, I guess you could say, less affordable. Also, higher rates really impacts the valuations of stocks, especially growth stocks. So just know the higher the rates are, generally it's bad for the market. But when we have inflation at 7%, or if we're being honest, it's probably even higher than that. When we have inflation that high, we need to calm that down. Like we can't just be averaging 7% inflation per year, or we'd have some serious problems. So it's like, while it does hurt that inflation is high right now, and while the market does not like that at all, it's okay that we rise rates because we have to.
Yeah, exactly. The Fed has to implement the tools that they have necessary, or else it could just keep spiraling out of control even more. And, like if we can go look at that article again, Mike, that shows the inflation data, and you can kind of see that in the 70s, inflation was getting crazy, like 13%, 14%. I think it was even higher at some points, but the whole point is that they have to start trying to get this to slow down, because if it doesn't, I mean, it's going to get pretty crazy. Obviously, prices on things are also going to get crazy, and then that could also just obviously affect the economy overall in a negative way. And, it hurts everything from consumer spending to, car companies, because people aren't buying cars anymore, just like in 2008. And there's so many things that happen whenever inflation starts to go up and stuff like that. So obviously it just affects so many different things on like a macroeconomic level. But yeah, obviously that's not good to see. That 10-year yield really rose this morning, Mike, when the SPY fell. And yeah, I'm really glad to see it recovering up though. But as far as like news today, I am seeing some pretty good news actually revolving around these EV charging stocks, believe it or not, Mike. And I wasn't trying to find good news about it. I just went on CNBC and I see news that says the White House rolls out $5 billion plan to states for electric vehicle chargers. And we can see Biden like standing in front of a tritium charger here. Pretty interesting to see this article come out. That's quite a bit of funding. I know it's not the most in the world, but hopefully that helps get some of these charging stocks and just charging companies in general going.
Yeah, we'll see. We have Vicky saying hit the like. So yeah, if you guys like the stream, it would be very appreciated if you can smash that like button. It takes like 2 seconds, and Tom and I greatly appreciate it. Then we have Sean coming in saying ASTR, is it worth the gamble? So I'm just going to be completely honest with you, Sean. I do not know enough about this company to have an official opinion on it. I've heard great things, but then again, their stock is not looking the best. So I just don't know. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's a very difficult industry to honestly be super accurate about. The thing is that these companies have a lot of hype right now, so just keep that in mind. I know that SPCE was one of my favorites heading into their launch. So I know that Astra has been going up into their launches, But just keep in mind, like if we look at SPCE's chart here, they were flying up ahead of their launches, and then as they had the actual launch, the stock fell right back down. So it might be a buy a rumor, sell the news type of situation. But what I will say is that ASTR has a lot of momentum. It's getting a lot of hype ahead of these launches. If the launch goes well, it could really shoot this company up. But just like we saw with SPCE, there's so many things that can go wrong, whether it's the weather going bad, whether it's, maybe the engine not working quite right, maybe the pressure wasn't up to spec or something. There's so many different things that can cause this launch to go wrong. And if that does happen, I mean, this stock will turn around in a major way, just like we saw on Monday. Like, we fell from $5.60 down to $4.30. Like, obviously, if you were holding shares of that at the time, you'd be pretty upset. But just keep in mind, it's going to be very, very volatile. I just don't know if it's even worth the risk right now, Mike. Like, I've been looking into these space companies, and I feel like they can be pretty good. But just like we saw on Monday, they fell because they had to abort that launch. And I just don't know. Like, I know that they rescheduled the launch, but hopefully it goes well this time.
Yeah, I really just don't know enough about the company to say anything. But then again, like, the people who buy when things are looking the scariest normally have the highest returns. So we'll see. But we have a question from Michael saying, "Good morning, guys. I have a question. I bought a 20 strike for BFI like a year ago for February 18th expiration date, and it's not even close to that." He said, "Anyway, my total gain on my portfolio says $134, and then I go to sell it, it says the bid says 0. So I assume you're using like Robinhood or Webull, or maybe you're even using TD. But basically what's happening here is if you have a 20 strike call, which it sounds like you do, sometimes the bid and ask in the mark price gets a little messed up. So for example, like the bid might say 0, but then the ask price might be like, I don't even know, like $200. So then what the trading platform does is it takes the midpoint between the bid and ask, which is the mark price, and then displays that to you. So it looks like you're really up, but really when you go to sell, there's no buyers. So there's really nothing you can do in a situation like this. I'm trying to think. Yeah, like there's literally nothing you can do. It's just kind of like a weird thing on how trading platforms work.
Yeah, it is. And those bid and asks, I've seen traders get demolished, especially newer traders with those bids and asks. So definitely try to find stocks that have good volume in the options chain. I don't know how the volume is for BFI, but I would guess, given by like looking at the volume with the stock, I'm guessing it's pretty low. The stock itself has pretty low volume. Like, let's see how much volume this stock actually had yesterday. Yesterday, this stock only had 51,000 volume, Mike. Like, I don't know if I've seen one that low in a long time.
Yeah, it's true. All right. So we have Jerry saying what type of problems, and I think he was asking related to hyperinflation. When inflation gets out of control, it is terrible. One bad thing is people just straight up lose their wealth. Like, especially the people, and I would say like the everyday person obviously isn't, I guess you can say, very like financially, I guess you can say, like, I don't know, like on top of things, you can say. I don't know how to word that. But basically, when we have hyperinflation, the value of the dollar just gets destroyed. So, let's say you have someone that might have their life savings of, I don't even know, like whatever. Over the course of a couple of years, that value can drop by a significant amount, which just like obviously hurts people as it is. People lose their wealth. On top of that, prices just get out of control. So basically, let's say we have, I don't know, let's say we have groceries. Let's say we have like a box of cereal. It's like a random example that costs $2 today. But let's say in a couple months it's going to be worth $4. And then a couple months after that it might be worth like $7. The value of the dollar gets lower and the cost of goods gets higher. So what people will do is they'll say, all right, well, I'm just going to buy a ton of stuff right now, which is going to cause a ton of shortages and make the problem even worse, which would make the prices even higher in the short term, making it even worse for everyone else. So that's just another example. And then on top of that, banks and just like large financial institutions get really screwed over because the value of their loans just get affected in a pretty negative way, and it's just bad. Like when we have hyperinflation is just bad, and there have been multiple crazy and sad examples over the course of time. I don't think we're going to get to hyperinflation in the U.S. and like that's like a horrible worst case scenario. But it just goes to show you, like, if the feds did not take the steps necessary to calm inflation down, we can be in for a world of hurt. So, while it does suck to see stocks down in the short term when rates rise, it's like I'd rather have rates rise and the inflation levels kind of balance themselves out than have a horrible problem, 5 or 10 years down the line.
Yeah, and a really good example, I think, of hyperinflation is like Germany before World War II. So if you ever want to, find like a really cool scenario to go back and look at true hyperinflation, go check out Germany before World War II. It was pretty insane to see how they were like burning their currency and stuff like that. And, it even happened in the US, I believe, like during the Great Depression and stuff. So just go ahead and look back at history at some of those. That's some pretty crazy circumstances, but it really affects everything overall. Like Mike said, from consumer spending to loans to everything. So it's definitely a big deal. And, just looking at the SPY today, Mike, like we're honestly almost all the way back up to this 458 resistance now. Like I know we talked about that recovery a few minutes ago, but it's just continued to go up minute after minute here.
Let's go. Awesome. We have George saying AMC above 20, Tom. I have not looked at this one in a little bit.
Wow, it is above $20. I can't believe I'm even saying this right now. And I'm surprised it's not at $500 a share.
Tomorrow, Tom. Don't worry.
Oh, yeah, that's right. 100% chance by the end of tomorrow for sure. But looking at it, we're right at that $20 resistance, Mike. And I'm not sure it's going to be worth playing today. We're already up 5%. We're right at that big resistance. But, man, it had a really nice break of that high yesterday. If you guys would have played the breakout from 19 to 20, I think that would have been a pretty good intraday move. But, man, I mean, it's getting explosive with AMC and just a lot of these growth stocks in general. We even have MU that continued up all morning. They're almost up 7% now. Disney's kind of back on the uptrend, which is nice to see. So, the market's turning around in such a great way. I can't believe we're shaking off that CPI data so quickly.
Don't jinx it, Tom. Watch, like a couple hours later, we're going to be down like 5% with the market.
Oh, no, please. As long as Disney stays up in DraftKings, I think I'll be happy.
Good. Yeah, and with AMC, obviously we're kidding, guys. It's not going to be at 500 tomorrow. I know that one's pretty wild, but not going to be at 500 tomorrow. Looking at some of these other questions, Tom, it looks like we have Navi asking about Uber. So how is this one?
Uber is actually doing very well, bouncing off its bottom support, and it's recovering up like a lot of these growth stocks, like a lot of the growth stocks. And I will say they did good with their earnings yesterday. They were kind of falling off like Disney at the beginning of the day, but they are coming back, which is nice. I'm not saying that they're going to end up at $44 again today, but it is good to see them holding their ground.
Yeah. All right. We have Iranical saying Disney can be at $160 today with a question mark. Yeah, definitely possible, especially with the way the market's moving. I wouldn't be one to buy like the 160 calls or anything like that. Disney's more of a long-term play for me. But yeah, if the market keeps moving the way it has been over the past like 20 minutes, it's definitely possible. Now, I will say there is a little bit of resistance right around like 159.25, maybe 159.30.
Is he looking to day trade calls?
I'm not sure. He just asked if it can be at 160 today, so I would assume he was looking at it.
Oh, I got you. Okay, I didn't hear part of the question. So he's looking to see if it could be at 160, and I would think that's a pretty good level that we could test, but like you said, Mike, there is a little bit of overhead resistance.
Yeah. Alrighty. And then we have Vicky saying this administration should not be spending taxpayers' money building charging stations. That's up to those private investors who want to grab business. Very infuriating how they spend taxpayers' money as if it was water. Yeah, I definitely know what you mean. You know, the government is. I think they could do a much better job with that. We'll say that, but it's been interesting, and I guess you can say that if they are going to be spending money on charging stations, at least it should help the EV industry, which I guess is the only good thing that comes out of it. So I don't know.
Yeah, that is the good news. It will help the EV industry a little bit, which is great. And the main thing is that they're doing this to try and help the private companies. Like obviously, I know that it would be better, in my opinion, if we just left it out if we just made it a free market, obviously, and the government had no interference. But at least they're kind of helping out, and I think they're really just trying to kickstart the EV industry in general, because you need those chargers, or else people aren't going to buy electric vehicles. That's the main reason why most people don't buy them, is because they're like, well, how am I going to charge them and all this? So obviously we need more chargers out there before it can get implemented in a bigger way. And I think it's not the worst thing. And I will say though, Mike, I saw that the article said, what was it, like $6 billion or something like that, $5 billion. But the thing is also keep in mind, they're wasting like hundreds of billions of dollars in other places. And I feel like it's not that much money in retrospect to some of these $1 trillion packages we've been seeing lately.
Yeah, no doubt. Vicky said, tell me if the government back in 1920 built gas stations. Let the market forces work, and that's the reason this country is the best in the world. It's no government business to get involved in this business. Yeah, I know what you mean. I also agree that the government should just let the market forces work. So that's good.
And I will say, if that was the case, General Motors might not even be around anymore. If we go back to the 2008 financial crisis, the government had to actually bail out General Motors. So, if we are looking at it in some of these ways, the government, they've bailed out companies quite a bit. Like obviously that's what happens when you file for bankruptcy, and it's just it's kind of crazy. I feel like that obviously it's good to let some companies like die, but at the same time, you're trying to help people out, because you don't want 5,000 people to just lose their jobs overnight or something.
Exactly. And they've bailed out banks countless times. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely understand both sides, but I definitely do think the government should get their hands out of a lot of the things that they shouldn't be in. And Hunter even said that Elon Musk said that he doesn't even want the government involved in charging stations. So that's interesting. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Well, we know he doesn't, because he knows the government isn't going to use his.
Gosh, that's funny. How is like Rivian and Lucid doing? Because I know we mentioned Tesla, but let's see. Rivian down 1.5%, not too bad. Lucid's coming up a little bit.
Yeah, Lucid's also in the red, but they are coming up. They were in the green earlier today. They just hit that resistance at 29 and came right back down. And honestly, it's not the worst setup I've seen today. I've seen lots of stocks in worse positions. So looking at them, they're not terrible. Hopefully Rivian can go up, because Rivian had a pretty good like triple top around $65 yesterday. And honestly, I think this would be a pretty good breakout opportunity if we break above 65. And I'm not saying, it'll be good for a long-term hold or anything, but at least in the short term, I feel like that could make for a pretty good day trade there.
Yeah, probably. Just need that momentum. Like a couple months ago, it had more momentum than any other stock, but it looks like it's slowly trading down to the valuation it should have IPO'd at, in my opinion. But
yeah, and the good news is that it's starting to go up as we're starting to see a lot of these other growth stocks, I should say, rising. We have DraftKings going, we have Lucid going up, we have Blink starting to rise. It looks like Rivian starting to go up. So hopefully it just follows the growth stocks back. And Yeah, I mean, you're right. Mike, I'll actually never forget whenever this stock was all the way up here. I actually remember you had told me one time, you said, Tom, I'll buy that stock if it's at $55. And we came all the way down to 50, even lower than you said. But I will say, Mike, you were pretty close, almost spot on with that prediction there. And I know you were just throwing out random numbers, but I mean, it ended up being pretty close.
Yeah, I told myself I was gonna short some put options if it like you said like was around 55 or something. I did not do it yet, mainly because I have a lot of short puts already open with all the deals we've been seeing with DraftKings and
Yeah,
AI
true that.
and Upwork and all that. So I probably will sell. I might sell some puts on Rivian today because the IV's at 110%. Yeah, the earnings are coming up in a little bit. For me, you know how I love DraftKings and those stocks, so of course I prioritize those plays over Rivian. But it's it is good to see it at least calming down a little bit with Rivian's crazy movement. So I don't know. Hopefully we see it hold its ground.
Yeah, and honestly, like over the next couple of weeks, if we keep holding $60 and then that $50 support plays out well, we might be able to come back up and touch this next resistance around $80. I think that would make for a pretty nice, safe type of move. You know, obviously there's going to be some resistance around $70 also, but you know, I feel like $80 could be pretty doable here, especially, you know, with how much this thing's been falling.
Yep. All right. So, Tom, do you have any last minute plays before we wrap up the stream?
I just wanted to keep looking at some of these stocks that were running earlier in the day. I know Boeing was having a really good morning and it kept running up to 220.80, and it looks like it is starting to consolidate now, but man, this one just kept going up all morning, having a good move. And I kind of want to see some of these stocks that were falling down, like Peloton, because it's like leading my watch list to the downside, but honestly, it had a pretty good recovery. So that's great to see. I know Netflix is another one that is kind of going down here, which is a little surprising to see. You know, after I saw Disney come out with their good earnings and Netflix kind of popped up in after hours with them, I was hoping that they would end up holding up a little bit better today, but you know, I guess their earnings were so bad, they're just continuing to go down, and they're almost down back below $400 even again.
Very interesting. Well, thank you guys so much for joining today's stream. Before we close it out, I want to personally thank everyone for joining. So thank you so much, George, Keisha, Vicky, Sean, I'm Fierce, Joe, Mike, Bill, Hunter, and let's see, Milwaukee, J Deep, Michael, Jerry, Navi, and Iranical, and I think, yeah, that's everyone. So we really appreciate all of you joining. We had a great stream today, and hopefully the market keeps popping up. So again, thank you guys so much for joining, and have a great rest of your day.